contribute voluntarily to remote participation. If any of the members of planning boards participates remotely, votes will be done by call. So we have various things that should be surely showing up on the screen as to the VWW Zoom US, your browser. Enter the meeting ID 754-63912. And if you want to participate when we do open a public hearing, then you'll be able to do *6 to toggle mute or non-mute, or toggle 9 to raise your hand. So with that, we're going to have a vote on approval of minutes of the July 19th, 2023. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm moving right along. So introductions of the board members, starting with the director of the planning,
I go first, so that's why I said it. I'm just teasing.
which is George Sears.
George Sears, thank you.
Way in back is the assistant director, Liz Rubidoux.
Good evening. I'm over here today.
And we have the secretary of record, and I apologize, she's new, so
Lisa Carvalho, Town Planning Clerk. Good evening.
we have Mr. Randy Chase, who is the representative for the town administrator.
Good evening.
We have the town council representative, Mr. Ganese.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
We have the vice chair, Mr. Dave Nelson.
Good evening.
And way over to the left, we have the guy behind the curtain, Mr. Owen Provencher. And we have the town engineer, Mr. Mark LaRue.
Good evening.
We have board member, Mr. Feinhauer.
Good evening, sir.
Eventually get that right.
You got it.
And then we get Mr. Dan Haley,
Good evening.
and Mr. Malaby.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
And I have myself as chair, John O'Connor. In addition to that, I'm going to put Mr. Malaby on the spot. He doesn't know this yet because our secretary is not here, so he is going to be acting secretary for the night.
Oh,
And
boy.
he's in a panic look right now.
I'm short. I can slink behind here.
So with that there, the first item on the agenda will be approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
So the approval of the minutes have been moved, and there was a slight adjustment on there because my name was omitted during the last meeting that we had, which I did vote in the affirmative to have a site review. So that has been corrected. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, we have, the only one that abstained would be Mr. John Morrison, which is not here tonight. So with that, Mr. Malaby, we have a correspondence regarding the same Salem Planning Board. So if you just give a highlight to that.
Yeah, it's from the town of Salem. Notice the abutters, Salem Planning Board petitioned by the Tuscan Village for the address of site plan 2024 Via Toscana, tax map 98, lot 7887. Location is the Salem Nightly Meeting Room. And if you're so interested, I believe you can come up for information later with the planning director, George Sears. I'm putting George on the spot now.
George, anything else to add to that?
No, it's just FYI to, when there's a project that large, the surrounding towns try to, like Woodmont and Londonderry, they try to just give us a notice that, it's a project that's a large regional thing, so we're good. You don't have to take any action on it.
Which the whole Tuscan area down there is
Yeah, that's
huge.
Tuscan Village. They're doing it in
huge.
several phases, so.
Yep.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So with that there, we're gonna move on. I don't believe there's any other correspondence that we're
Nope.
dealing with.
Nope. Oh, yeah,
Well,
we'll get to
we've-
the bylaws in a second.
Oh.
Do you want to do? Yeah, I'm saying, why don't we do, we have 3 memos from Liz on the
Oh, you wanna do those?
yeah, why don't we do those? I'll let Liz do it
Okay,
because
so
she
I
did
was
a
gonna
great
do
job on
those
the
under
memos.
Under the director and everything. So if you're gonna do that there, that's fine. Why don't we, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll let Liz do those.
Okay, so the first one is, you have a memo regarding proposed amendments to the bylaws.
Is your mic on?
It is now?
Okay. First time Liz has ever been quiet.
Right, I know. So the first one is a suggested amendment to the board bylaws. Legislation was recently approved in May that became effective at the end of July, which includes changes to RSA 91A3, which is the right to know law. They require public bodies to review public meeting minutes within, I'm sorry, let me change that. The changes require public bodies to review their meeting minutes that were withheld from public disclosure at least every 10 years to determine whether they should be continued to be withheld. If you don't take action on those, they automatically become public after 10 years. So staff would suggest amending the planning board policy and procedures to include an article that during the annual meeting, the board schedules that just to kind of review and see if there are any minutes that were sealed that need to be reviewed within that 10-year period. I did go through and review all of the planning board minutes, and I went back, I went back 12 years, or actually longer. I think I went back as long as I've been here. So there are several sets of minutes, one in 2010, 4 in 2009. And I've noted what those were, the subjects of those meetings, without getting into detail about what was non-public. So I would suggest that, number one, you move forward with an amendment to the bylaws to add that verbiage in. And secondly, the board should make a determination. You can do it either at this meeting or you could do it at your meeting in September on whether you would like to unseal those minutes.
So if I understand this correctly, going forward, anytime that we put into 91A, that we secluded that we vote every single year as to whether or not to keep it or open it.
Well, in this case, if you, so normally what would happen, if you had a non-public meeting today and voted to seal the minutes, within 10 years, you would need to decide whether you want to keep it sealed or not. It may be that it doesn't matter if they're public now. In this particular case, the minutes from 2010 and the 4 from 2009, if you vote to unseal those minutes this evening, there are no other non-public minutes. So it would just be a check, during your annual meeting, just to say, did we have any in the last year? If not, it's a non-issue and you just move on. But it would be really good to have that check in your procedures so that you don't miss it.
So instead of lingering this going on, every year we get to review it and we can
And then you
clean the
get,
slate.
yes, but if you vote on these 5, you clean the slate and you don't have any non-public minutes.
And I believe Mr. Grenice has a question.
Question.
So we have to take action on these 5 tonight?
You could elect to take action tonight, or you could wait till September and put it on the agenda. It's at the board's pleasure.
Okay, because my question would be is if we don't do action tonight, because I remember all 5 of these, 'cause I was on the board, and I would not be in favor of making these public. These should still stay non-public. In my eyes, this is my opinion. So if we don't take action tonight,
I would, if you
someone
don't take
91A?
action tonight, I would suggest putting it on the agenda for the next meeting and then actually take a vote and say, we elect to not unseal these minutes. You have that option. You can vote to keep them sealed, but the issue is that you need to review them and make a determination. And if you don't do that, then they become public.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion?
Yes,
Is
'cause I
that-
also want to bring up Mr. Nelson shortly, too. Go ahead.
I would be comfortable with putting this, if it's up to you to put on the next meeting agenda. And then before our next meeting, maybe we can go in the back or just read go, so that way that people can go over them. And then we can have, people who, because we have a lot of new people on the board, and everybody can make an informed decision on all these.
And before I accept that motion, I wanted to see what Mr. Nelson has to say.
Well, I was actually going to make it as a formal motion rather than a suggestion that we add the amendment as proposed to the bylaws, as well as review of the non-public meetings to our next available meeting.
The next available, so I'm moving into the September
Put on the
planning
agenda.
board meeting.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll
Yeah,
get,
all
we'll
right.
do one of this, yeah.
And the board members, nodding our heads and everything
Is there a
else.
second?
Everybody in concurrence with what's going, accepting that?
Yes.
So.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So go ahead and make the formal motion.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to add to the September agenda consideration vote on the proposed amendment to the board policy and procedure regarding non-public minutes, and further to also at that meeting take a vote on whether or not to unseal the non-public minutes that have been listed for us.
All in favor, say aye.
Oh, second.
Oh, second, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye, abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
Me?
I just want to check with, because we're also available, which I probably did I not read about the virtual?
You did. You spoke
Because
on
we're
it.
still on virtual, so anybody that would like to be participating in the future with the next public hearing that we do have, is that we have the availability of going online, and we can do Zoom US, meeting ID 754-663-912, and then we can do *6 to mute or *9 to raise your hand. So you please let me know if you see anybody that jumps or that wants to jump on, and I'll try to pay attention to you over there, which I always usually do. So with that,
I will move along. Okay.
we go
Okay.
on to the next item, which is a voluntary
Oh, no, I'm
No,
sorry.
we've got two more memos,
No,
John.
Sorry, you have two more things that I need to go over
thought
with the
they
board,
were all-
please.
Okay,
So the next one is the proposed changes to the
Oh.
Development Project Security Workbook, affectionately known as our escrow. There were other recent changes to state legislation with regard to how construction escrow for subdivisions is calculated. That becomes effective in August.
and if I understand correctly, Liz, that the security workforce document that we have, that we were not going to take action on that today. We were going to review that and then bring it up at the next meeting so
be
that the
correct.
board members
Yeah.
had a chance to review it. Am I correct on that?
You are. So let me just explain this a little bit further, because
Good, thank you.
So the legislation establishes requirements and limits on the security for street work, utility, landscaping, final pavement, things of that nature. Essentially, what the amended legislation does is it will put a cap on the cost escalations as applied to the project security or the construction escrow. The cap's 15%, and it only applies to construction items. In looking at our current regs and costs, the town of Derry has not updated its escrow calculation fees since 2011, and our escalation factor was below 15%. So the proposed changes will remove the engineering and contingency factor of 20% from the escrow calculation spreadsheet, and it will increase the escalation amount to 15%, which complies with the new legislation. You have attached to your packet copies of the, towards the very back, you have a copy of the proposed for 2023 with the new 15% escalation and the engineering and contingency removed. And then for comparison purposes, you have, there should be a copy of the older version. Because of the amended legislation, we do need to change the Development Project Security Workbook, so those proposed changes are attached in this packet. It basically adds in the verbiage that we will accept a performance bond for a form of security, and it essentially just takes out the wording that says we'll have engineering and contingency fees in there. That's really a quick summary of the changes, and I would recommend this get placed on the next agenda to schedule a public hearing.
We have a question from Mr.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was, I don't know, kind of be my question. This is not part of the scope of the LDCR. This is a standalone document,
It's an appendix to the
an
LDCR.
appendix to the LDCR. So we
LDCR.
do need to hold a public hearing on it.
Oh, I apologize. I think I guess maybe the board should discuss it, but the last time we made changes to this workbook, because it was an appendix, we just scheduled it at a meeting to kind of just formally review, and then the board made a motion. The last time we did the appendix, we didn't feel that a public hearing was warranted.
So do we do public hearings for the LDCR itself?
For the LDCR itself, but this is just the appendix.
Well, if it's an appendix, it's part of the document.
Then it's up to the board's discretion if they want to move forward.
I would
which-
recommend
yeah.
that,
Was
Okay.
that part of 2011?
Yeah,
I would recommend that we schedule a public hearing
Okay.
and provide feedback in the interim, because I don't want to risk having someone challenge it because we didn't hold a public hearing.
okay. Okay, so at the first meeting in September, there'll be a date on the agenda to schedule the public hearing, and then we can make sure we schedule that for the second meeting in September?
And I'd like to add to that too, and I'd probably put Mr. LaRue on spot, is the fact that some of the differences in the documentation, that it's changed from 2011 to current on market value and so forth, to be able to discuss that process, because I do know there's certain people who may have some concerns, because it's been 2011. And we all know what's happened in the last couple of years on pricing. And so pricing has changed, so
It would
be
be,
prepared.
yeah, and it would be important to note that anyone who has established escrow at this point, their numbers are not going to change. Even when we do releases, they're held to the old numbers because that's what we set in place. It would be anybody new coming in, newly established escrow would fall under the new costs.
And again, just to verify where the costs are coming from and
Okay,
who's supplying the cost, so that'd be great, thank
okay,
you.
all right, we'll do that. So I have
Thank
one
you,
more
Mr.
item
Nelson.
for you. Oh, were there any other questions on that?
So, next one?
One more. Since we're talking about money, the town has been reviewing its fees to ensure that the town of Derry is in line with other communities with regard to what we charge. So Planning Department, mostly George, reviewed the current fees charged for planning board related applications. For the most part, we're in line with other communities of our size. Town Council will be holding a public hearing on August 15th to review proposed increases in fees, and the attached planning board fees are in this packet. What we are proposing is to change the change of use application fee from 25 to 50, minor subdivisions from 175 plus 50 per lot to 200 plus 50 per lot, which is more in line with other communities. Major subdivisions would go from 200 to 300 plus 100 per lot. We decreased the abutter notification fee. What we would like to propose is, right now, we're doing certified return receipt. That's costing the applicants almost $12 a notice, which is ridiculous. So, because we charge the current postage for certified return receipt plus a surcharge of $3 per notice to kind of cover the administrative time it takes to put those notices together. We'd like to change it just to certified mail, because the state law says we only need to send the notices verified. We don't need to send certified return receipt. That would decrease the charge to $7.98 for each abutter notice at the current postal fees rather than the current $11.53. We'd also remove the administrative fee of 5% for, which is a surcharge on the recordings, because the applicant is now fully paying for all of the recording of the plans. And so we just would request you consider the above-noted changes, and if they're approved by town council on August 15th, we'd need to move forward with our own public hearing to amend the fees in the LDCR.
And just to confirm this, is that this is something just the board can do, or does it have to board approve and then go forward to
Well,
town council?
Town council has these fees before them, so if they decide to go with the fees that have been proposed to them, then they will, if they approve it, then we need to amend the LDCRs. If they don't approve it, then it's just status quo.
Okay, thank you.
Just speak that for the record too, real quick. As Liz said, during the budget process this past spring, and Dave, you were there, the town administrator asked all departments to look at their revenues. So we did. So like Liz said, we were pretty consistent, but every single department will have their revenues next Tuesday night, the council meeting, to amend them. Some haven't been done in many years but that came up during the budget process of increasing revenues or looking at other ways to look at revenues. And that's what triggered this. But
And again, a lot of this hasn't been adjusted since 2011.
yes, and in our
Oh, just
case,
so everybody know.
we were pretty consistent from other competitive towns, so we weren't that far off. So, for the record.
Mr. Nelson?
So, Mr. Chairman, given that, I would like to move to have this on the agenda for our next available meeting to set a public hearing date, and we should probably do the workbook and the fees in the same public hearing because they're all amendments effectively to the LDCR.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Since we're not on virtual, everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Let's go.
Okay, you'll be on the next schedule appointment. George? So with that,
So there is one more memorandum. This has to do with CHA overhead door.
That's other business.
That's other business?
Yeah, that's on other
yeah,
business.
that's under
Okay.
voluntary merger and so
David
forth.
goes with this.
So we're going into the right now, which is
Okay.
We'll get to
other
the,
business voluntary merger, PID 19067, 1006 Colette Grove Road, PID 19067-001, 1008 Colette Grove Road. George?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think this one is pretty straightforward. It's Colette's Grove. We're just combining the two lots as shown on the back map, highlighted in yellow, you see. So this is standard procedure to merge the lots. Robert Higgins, the owner, is in the audience if there's any questions. Staff would recommend approval.
So we don't need a public hearing for that.
No, they can be done administratively, and that's great.
Any questions from the board members?
All right, Mr. Chairman, if there's no questions from anybody on the board, I'd like to make a motion. All right, I move to approve pursuant to RSA 674:39AL for the voluntary merger PID 19067-1006 Colette's Grove Road, and PID 19067-001, 1008 Colette's Grove, PID 19067-001 will be deleted, and PID 19067 retained.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Moving forward, it's been accepted. So next one is CHI overhead doors, PID 08280, 10 Ashley Drive, a discussion regarding the conditional approval of site plan.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to let Liz take this because she wrote the memo, but I just, for the record, want to introduce from Bowler Engineering, Austin, I apologize in your last name.
Turner.
Turner, okay. Austin's here.
I didn't pick that up.
The engineer from Bowler Engineering, Austin Turner, is here that did the site plan. This is the overhead door company over at the movie cinema on Ashley Drive. But I'll turn over to Liz. Liz wrote the memo and she can explain what they're doing. And then Austin
Very
can
good.
as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in April of this year, the board approved a site plan for the redevelopment of 10 Ashley Drive, changing the former movie cinema into CHI overhead door. Since that date, the applicant has completed all of the conditions of approval, and the plan was executed in June by the board. The applicant plans to continue interior renovation of the building for the industrial warehouse space and to construct the 3,000 square foot addition which supports the loading areas. At this time, the applicant would like to defer construction of the 10,000 square foot addition until after the building's been occupied in operation for a certain period of time. So they're asking permission to phase the project and to defer that construction. In preparation for the future construction, they'll loam and seed that area of the parking lot. The previously approved detention pond will not be required for what could be deemed phase 1 of the project, which is the 3,000 square feet. They're proposing a 5,300 square foot landscaped area to offset that small increase in impervious area that would result from the loading area improvements. So staff would respectfully request that you contemplate approving the phasing for the project. We have escrow for the whole project, for the detention pond and the infrastructure work that would support the construction of phase 2. If escrow is fully released upon completion of the site work for the 3,000 square foot addition, the applicant does understand that they would need to establish escrow for phase 2. And then, so let Austin add to that.
Sure. Again, good evening. Austin Turner with Bowler. Seeing myself on that big screen is quite alarming, and I apologize for everybody else who has to watch me in HD tonight.
I'm not up there.
So we had always intended to complete the 10,000 square foot addition after we were open and the site was operational. I think in the interest of clarity, as we were working on the pre-construction meeting and working with your team here, we thought it made sense just to come back to the board and just kind of fully articulate that so there was no confusion. We have made just a couple of very minor tunings to the plan, which was noted in the memorandum, just loaming and seeding portion of the area where the building would be, just in a temporary fashion until which point that part of the project comes forward. And then some additional minor refinements in there as kind of construction's evolved. Doesn't change from a functionality standpoint anything that was previously approved. It just formalizes, if you will, the deferring of the 10,000 square foot addition to the building. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair, I do have a question for the applicant. What is it that we are presented with this evening, this plan set?
So what you're seeing there is the plan set that shows what is being constructed right now. So it's going to show the site. We're completing it ideally in the next month or so is our expectation. What you're looking at in that plan set is what the site will look like when it's completed without the 10,000 square foot addition on it.
So what we approved previously was a different site plan that had both the 3,000 foot and the 10,000 foot structures shown.
Yes, sir. Correct. Show the entirety of the project in its full build-out condition.
And your intent is to phase that into phase 1 being what's in this plan set, and phase 2 being this plan set plus what we previously approved.
Correct.
So my opinion is that because we approved the plan set after a public hearing, this is really an amendment to an approved site plan. We need to go through the public hearing process again. I think it should probably be one approved document, clearly labeled phase 1 and phase 2, with completion timeframes scheduled out for each of them, because we can't simply take an alternate document which has not been through the public hearing process and say, well, we're going to swap that for the one that's been recorded at the registry. So I think the most expeditious thing would be to submit a request for a site plan amendment, come in and discuss which parts are in which phase, and then we'll figure out the appropriate completion dates and revise the escrow appropriately. You don't, I believe, need to keep escrow for a phase that isn't under current active development, but you can't just swap the plan set.
Yeah, I did say. Do we have to?
Sure. So I think just as a clarity, when we had submitted the original application, it did discuss or contemplate these improvements being constructed kind of in a phased manner with the 10,000 square foot building potentially being done after the loading expansion was completed. So I think that was something that was considered as part of the original application, which
Did the original document set have notes on it to that effect?
I don't know that the plans expressly stated that the 10,000 square foot building was going to be deferred, so which is why, as we were working with your team during the pre-construction meeting, they thought it made sense potentially for an administrative item with the planning board tonight to show, again, in the interest of transparency and clarity, what was being completed
Yeah, so
right now.
my opinion is that even if it was part of the discussion, what's really binding is what gets recorded. No? Well. Oh, okay. Well, approved and archived in the basement anyway. So I don't think we can simply take a new plan set and say, well, this is what you're doing today, and it administratively replaces a plan that went through public hearing and approval. That's just my opinion, that you need to be a little bit more formal about that.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Panisse? Can I just ask for some clarity from George or Liz regarding procedure regarding this, please?
Yeah, I think that, going back to the original plan, it was shown that it would be, the 10,000 square foot addition. So I think you approved a plan for the overall dock space and that. And I'll look to Mark a little bit because there was site issues on the construction that kind of triggered that to be transparent to come here tonight. So I respect what Dave is saying, but I think if the board, it's not going to hold up construction, but I think we just want to bring this to your attention. It's really phasing. That's something that you can make a motion to suggest that you approve the phasing of the project. But the initial plan, yeah, the original plan, I'm just trying to think back. The original plan, and Austin, please help me on this, and Mark, you had an approval for the 10,000 square foot addition as well as the dock space.
Correct, yep.
And Mark, do you want to say something? Because you're out in the field, what kind of triggered all this?
It
Please.
wasn't really the field, it was during a pre-construction meeting that we had, that the plan was modified to show that area to be a crushed stone, porous gravel surface, if you will. And that triggered, my concern is that, like everybody's concerned about, that we all understood that everything was going to be constructed at once, and that stone was not part of the approval process. And we talked about it with the applicant during the pre-construction meeting quite extensively. And my concern is just the same as yours as far as timing, escrow. I don't want to really hold escrow, but I felt that it was somewhat of a big change right before construction starts. And I wanted to make sure that everything was brought up to the board so that you guys could discuss and make sure that you are on board with what we had talked about. Since that point, they modified that stone area where they're showing grass. Now they're showing grass, which is fine. I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to balance the need for permeability on the site based on the permits from NHDES. Didn't have an issue with that, but again, I don't think it's good practice to have escrow extended for many years, and I didn't want to have, it's like the chicken or the egg. Well, we want to have this placeholder. We don't want to really have to come back to ask for another building addition later, but maybe that's up for everyone to discuss if you want to have them scale down the plan as shown. And then I think my thoughts were that they would have to come back and probably they might want to fine tune what kind of addition would be in there. And I don't think it would be that much of a change from a plan down the road. But at that point, they could also, it would be different members of the board. Everyone would be up to speed. And then, we could address the escrow again at that point. Rather hold escrow for a shortened amount of time for that particular project instead of holding it in account for, an unspecified time.
I think in the interest of clarity, again, what we're showing here, as Mr. LaHue mentioned, we were asked to just depict what the interim condition looks like. The board's approved everything. They were asked, so when somebody's out there in the field on the town's behalf or whomever, and they see that the 10,000 square foot part of the building isn't immediately constructed, there was no confusion as to why. So out of that pre-construction meeting, we updated the drawings to show that interim condition. It doesn't fundamentally, at least in my opinion, doesn't fundamentally change what the board had approved. It just shows and graphically depicts kind of that first step, if you will. I know I'm not objective in the conversation. I don't, in my opinion, for what it's worth, I don't know that it advances to having to formally amend a site plan approval, because I think, again, in my opinion, I think the board approved all of that previously. But again, I'm at the pleasure of the board and your team, so.
Do you have something further you want to add?
Yes, if I could, please. Alan Mello, Cinema Properties property owner. In speaking with Mr. LaRue during our pre-construction meeting, our original application was always to build the 10,000 square feet at a later date. We were moving forward with looking at that sooner than later, but CHI has pulled back from that. The way I understand this from a layman's perspective, and please bear with me, is that we have to increase the asphalt at the rear of the building by the new loading dock area. By doing that, we have to increase permeable soil. In lieu of building the retention pond over by the connecting road from Ashley Drive to the mall, at this point, we are proposing to open up the pavement there so that the water can leach into the ground there. So basically, in lieu of building that retention pond over there. But as we're saying, we wanted to come to the board to say, in the interim, while we're waiting for that 10,000 foot to be built, again, using the phrase, if someone drove by, why did you open up the parking lot here and what is that? So we just wanted to have full disclosure here. This is our interim plan before the 10,000 square feet gets built. So it was fully disclosed on our original application that the project would be phased. When we got involved in the construction and started really looking at this, this was a very suitable, through the engineers and the construction folks, to suitable interim solution to accommodate the stormwater permeating back into the site.
So a question to you, sir, that if it was going to be phased, is it a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, to be on record for a particular timetable?
I would say a minimum of 2 years at this point, based on the economy right now and CHI's expansion, occupation.
And agreeable, understood?
I'm sorry, sir?
Understood about the economy, what's going on.
Yeah. So they said, hey, we still want to go forward to that, and this is a solution opposed to, basically we're running pipes all the way over to the driveway to run them back, to run them around, and this is an interim solution to do that. So we wanted to disclose that to the board, that this is our interim solution to accomplish that. But it was always presented as a phased project.
Okay, I have one more question from myself before I reopen the board again. If you look at the C501 screen that's up there, and we look at the storm drains that are there, is that research that was presented to us on all this documentation and even the boiler point and so forth, it doesn't appear that those drains are gas-oil separation. And I don't know whether Mr. LaRue could verify that from the town engineering, because since we're not doing the retention pond, that those drains that are there, because all of a sudden, what's brand new, which has never been there before, is these tractor-trailer docks.
We have
And having a facility that I had 300 tractor-trailers in my facility, I know what oil and drip is and so forth. So I have a concern with that that's brand new to me, because I never picked up on that in the previous notes. So if you could elaborate on that, that would be nice.
Sure, if you don't mind through the chair, I can answer that question. So it's a great question. Those catch basins have a deep sump, first of all, to catch any of the solids. Two, they're designed to be equipped with gas traps, which is an anti-siphon device. And that hood, if you will, extends approximately 2 feet below the invert of the pipe, which is exiting the catch basin. And the idea is that anything floatable doesn't get siphoned out through the pipe and has the ability to be trapped inside the structure. So when it goes through regular maintenance, that can be removed without it actually exiting the pipe and being discharged into the larger stormwater system. There is a detail in your plans on sheet C602 in the upper left corner that shows the gas trap on the catch basins.
I'm sorry, what sheet?
C602. Upper left corner.
Because a lot of these are boilerplate. Because the one you're showing up here, you're saying that shows the gas separation?
If you look at
Me,
it's hard to.
my experience.
So
and-
there's a label you'll see, it's kind of, it says gas trap, and it points to the device that's attached to the pipe which exits the catch basin. That's
That's called a precast concrete depth sump catch basin.
so the detail is a precast concrete deep sump catch basin, and then it has a gas trap which is equipped to the pipe, which is the anti-siphon device, and which is intended to trap floatables in the system so that they're not allowed to exit through the pipe. They can be removed, by way of a vacuum truck or other removal.
Yeah, it's just a simple T or a 90-degree
I was
bend.
going to say, Mr. LaRue,
It's,
concur?
it's just a simple T or a 90-degree bend that siphons the water lower than the surface, so that everything stays above it. The gas and oil stays above it, stays trapped in a manhole, like he says. It's not an elaborate system. We have a lot of those all the way through town.
Okay, only because we were losing the
Yep.
retention pole and everything else. I want to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, these drains actually weren't going to the detention pond. The detention pond was more for the 10,000 square foot building, the roof leader. That was just to hold that back before it went back into the system there.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any, oh, I'm
Jim.
sorry, Mr. Ganesh.
Question for Ms. LaRue. Normally, wouldn't this be a field change? Something like this?
I felt it was a little bit more than just a field change. I felt uncomfortable when we were talking about it, to be honest, and maybe there was discussion of phasing, but I was thinking, what, they're going to work on this addition, and then they're just going to go work on that addition, because there were, to me, that was how I understood the project to be presented. But when they had that change, I said, well, I just can't okay a complete, a cut in the pavement and just put crushed stone. That was never discussed. So, and when anytime it has to do with something that's drainage related, especially with all the stormwater regulations that we're under in this part of the state, I just want to make sure that we cover our bases and comply with all the requirements for meetings and getting approvals. I don't think it's a big change. It's not substantial. I don't think this is going to hinder their current construction. I don't want them to think that this is going to hinder the current state of the project. It is all approved for at once. I think it's just better to get the approval set as everybody's comfortable with, is, because like when we talked, it could be 2 years, could be 4 years, could be 6 years. Well, a lot of things change once you start multiplying years, and maybe it would be best to, have an administrative, this is what the project is going to be now. We'll release the escrow once this is complete as shown, and then if they choose to do the other addition, come back for that.
So
Thank you.
Well, no, I just want to continue. Well, no, so it's my feeling that I wouldn't be opposed of making a motion to
Timetable?
accept this plan as an amendment to the last motion with any concerns from Public Works. So you're saying release the escrow for the 10,000 square foot addition?
Well, I wouldn't release it
Hold it.
until this is complete. If this is what they choose to complete, we'll release it all, and, you know, and you can amend that the second phase would have to return for approval.
Yep.
I don't know, you know, that's,
And you're receptive to that, gentlemen?
I'm sorry, sir?
You're receptive to what he just made the comments on?
Yeah, no, we still would like to retain the ability to construct the 10,000 square feet. Again, this is an interim solution to handle recharge of water into the site. And other than that, to keep the escrow on account is fine with me. It's just a matter of, we felt at our pre-construction meeting that we wanted to go back in front of the board and disclose to you 10,000 square feet. Our first application, again, was a phased approach. We were going to build the 3,000 square feet and at a later date put on the 10. That was what our application said. And at the meeting, in defense to Mr. LaRue, I didn't have that right at the tip of my file. And we researched that right after the meeting, and we did disclose that at the first. So back to the 10,000 square feet. So we're deferring that. I'd like to keep that in place, but the engineers actually brought it to our attention that we should, in the interim, accommodate for stormwater recharge back into the ground, and that's basically why we're here. Right now, if we just stopped, we wouldn't need to put that pond in, but we felt to be proactive to do this. That's the way I understand it.
Okay, thank you.
So I have one more,
Mr. Panisi, you-
I have one more comment. Me personally, I don't foresee this needing to go to a public hearing, and I'm going to defer the rest of my time to Mr. Cioris.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just for the record, because we have a lot of new members, if you can bear with me, because I think, I'm going to read from the Land Development Control Regs, because this kind of touches upon exactly what we're talking about between engineering and planning, and I think it will address, for the record, that the board administratively can do this. Because it comes under administration, that's what they call it, and enforcement. General requirements, for the record, section 174B. Bear with me, because I got to read it for the record, but it touches what Dave Granessi just said too. Minor changes or revisions to said plans, profiles, typical sections, and details caused by unanticipated conditions encountered during construction shall be designed by the applicant's engineer and shall be subject to the written approval of the town engineer with concurrent notice to the planning director prior to such approval being given. Major changes or revisions to any plan previously approved by the planning board which involve material alterations in the work or involve discretionary judgment powers generally reserved by the planning board under these regulations or applicable statutory provisions shall be made upon receipt of approval from the Derry Planning Board. Those contemplating a change or revision to the approved project plan shall contact the planning director and town engineer, which is Public Works, regarding the proposed change. Planning director, in consultation with the town engineer, shall render an opinion as to whether a contemplated change is deemed to be major or a minor revision. And I think based on what Dave Granessi said and what Mark's opinion is, and I defer to Mark, Mark's the engineer with the developer in the construction in the field. I don't see that raises to the level, no disrespect to Dave Nelson, to have a public hearing. This was written on purpose to allow the staff with the planning board at their discretion to allow these field changes to be made. So I think this covers it for the record, in my opinion, and I think it confirms what Mark said as well, because Mark brought it to our attention. So that's just for the record. It's in your own regulations.
Thank you, Josh. Question from Mr. Nelson.
So, okay, I don't think it's a minor field change. I think it's a major change that does need to come before us.
I agree.
So, assuming we're okay with not having a public hearing, I don't think the butters really came out to the first one to begin with. So, I guess my question is this way, we have two plan sets, the one that we approved that has signatures on it. We now have this other document, which is not really exactly identified as its function in the overall scheme of things. We've been told it is an interim drainage solution. There are no signature blocks on it. And so you've got the official approved plan set with the signatures, and then you've got this plan set, which presumably will be used for construction monitoring and inspections. So my question is, if it's a minor or a major change to an approved site plan, how does that normally get memorialized? Is there a whole new plan set? Does it have signature blocks? How does that work?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Mark. I'll let Mark and I can speak.
The minor stuff that happens just about in every project is done on the as-built plan. The as-built plan that's completed by the surveyor or the engineer or both is memorialized in our files.
So there are agreements between the engineering staff and the developer as to, yeah, you can change this piece of pipe to that piece of pipe and whatnot, and then eventually that gets recorded.
Yep, we usually,
Or memorialized, I don't want to use the word recorded.
we usually,
memorialized in an as-built.
like if we moved a catch basin or added a catch basin, we would get an SK plan on 11x7 showing the change, then be change 1, change 2, change 3. For any incidental thing that's minor in that nature, that stuff gets collected, and then we do an overall as-built of the site plan that goes on the as-built.
So that's cool, I understand that, but now we have this other document, which is the interim solution, which is neither an as-built nor the original plan. It doesn't have signature blocks. How do we document control this document? Now, the timetable's not gonna say, this is the one we looked at.
My thought would be to, it probably would have been better to just have phase 1 plan, phase 2.
Yeah, I think that's where the applicant wants to get to it. What's our most expeditious way to get there?
So it's coming back to the planning board with phase 1, phase 2?
It's not, this is the phase 1, if you will, if I had to label it something.
Sure, if you want to call it that, I think it's
So
phase 1, so
I
to
would
speak.
withdraw my objections if the plan set were to be labeled phase 1 of 2 phases, and were to have signature blocks on it so that the planning board officers signed it so that we have document control.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, David, just perfect. That's exactly what we can do. We can have the engineer change that cover sheet. We can bring it back and have you sign it, so we'll have a more formal record. But I think what Dave said to do, but let's just maybe memorialize it in a motion, just so we have some for the record.
So,
That'd be
Mr.
helpful.
Chairman, then I would like to move to accept the proposal from the applicant this evening to recognize the phasing of this approved site plan, and to request that the phase 1 document that is being presented to us tonight to indicate the interim solution be redrawn to indicate that it is the phase 1 of 2 phases plan, to add signature blocks, and to have all of the folks in engineering of the departments and the planning board who normally sign site plans, sign it in order to have document control.
And the friendly amendment to what Mr. Nelson just said, as he made reference to document July 26, 2023. So that would be current document. Second.
Can I ask a point of clarity? Would you like us, so the plans which were originally approved by the planning board, would you like those to be differentiated in some fashion too, to be called it overall build out, or?
We would need the
Well,
signature.
Yeah, we've signed
Yeah.
those, so why don't
Okay.
you just say this is phase 1 and phase 2, put a note on the plan saying that this is, we're explicitly recognizing the phasing. This is the phase 1. The original plan set reference, the approved date is both phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay.
I don't want to make you redo the first approval. I just want to make sure that we know what this is, that it has appropriate signatures and it's appropriately identified.
Sure. It makes,
Right.
Yeah, well, we'll add the signature block. I felt, honestly, that adding a signature block to the plan right now felt a bit presumptuous on my part, but I'm happy to do as you just described. That makes sense.
And make sure you have the signature block on there, so you can get with George and Liz afterwards to make sure it's in the right appropriate location.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we have a motion,
I second it.
a friendly amendment.
Second it.
I'm gonna do an actual vote, Randy Chase,
Yes.
Mr. Ganese.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Feinhouse.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Malaby.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so the matter's been approved. You can move forward, and we're glad to see you come into town and finally clearing out that whole area.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine.
Thank you.
So, the next item on the agenda is the planning director and chairman updates. This one's a little bit difficult. It's with saddening that Elizabeth Robidoux will be leaving Derry. She's been George's assistant for many, many years. She's given me a lot of guidance. She's given other chair people, such as Mr. Ganese, Mr. Nelson, over the years. In a sense, it's really a glorious thing because she's going to be moving. I'm not going to say which name of the town, that those are towns and not to be named. But she's moving into a higher position, and rightfully so. She's been phenomenal, and even though we probably only have one architect right here, a designer, that she has helped them all immensely over the years, guiding them and directing them in how to come across some of us on the planning board in bypassing some of the things. It's with a lot of sorrow that we're going to lose her, but I'm so glad that she's going to be respected and move into a position of a higher authority than she's had before. So with that, so Liz, we're gonna miss you. It's usually at this point, she says, John, move on. Come on, let's go. Moving on. Mr. Grenice, anybody else want to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman?
before-
So, see, we're gonna roast Miss Robidoux tonight. Liz, I just wanna say, it's been, what, 16, 17 years? And I got on the planning board. We became professional and personal friends, and I appreciate that. You've helped me a lot when I was chairman. I've asked you for, hey, can you get this done? You got it done. Amazing. You even did stuff that I should have done or George should have done, and you're an asset. I mean, Derry's going to be lost without you. I know George is going to be lost without you. Big shoes to fill. I just want to say I personally appreciate everything you've done for the town and everything you did for me, while I was chairman and being on the board and correcting me when I was wrong, and you're a wealth of information. I've learned a lot from George and from you. I mean, this is all about you tonight. I just want to wish you luck, and I just want to say, if you ever need anything in the future, professionally or personally, you have my personal cell phone. Please reach out to me. Definitely a call away. And I just want to thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, come on. You guys,
Why?
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm going to
And
share
good luck.
these here right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Um,
My pleasure.
Oh, do we have a speech now?
No, I just want to say, just thank you. I have really enjoyed my tenure here in Derry, mentoring under George.
It's okay.
And,
Thank you.
yeah, no, I appreciate the friendships I've made here and the opportunities I've been given by the town to learn and to grow in this profession. It's one I'm passionate about, you all know that. And it has been a true honor to serve the town, so thank you all.
Thank you. I gotta give you a stand ovation.
And congratulations on your new venture, because I know you're going to do very, very well. And make sure you divert those people in the businesses down to Derry. So with that, sorry, Lennox Avenue, you following up behind this. So,
George wants to say
should we
something.
cancel Lennox? No, we should not. No. We're gonna, to the next. So we have 20, a public hearing. I'm sorry?
George wants to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, George, I
And updates.
apologize.
Unless Tim wants to go before me, it's up to you, Tim.
Because George has been.
This is,
he-
same thing, this is tough to the words that were said. As Liz knows, she's been my coworker, my friend for 16 years. It's like, my right arm, it's a great opportunity for her, so I'm gonna miss her. We have a friendship in addition to being a coworker, so this is tough. It's a great opportunity for her. I wish her well, and I've enjoyed working for her, and we're a team. We're joined at the hips a lot of ways, but I wish her well, and maybe she'll come back someday, but we'll have something in my office separately, but I just wanted, for the record, say thank you, Liz, for your friendship and your help in helping me. She's been my right arm for 16 years, and I'm going to miss that, so thank you very much. And we have a card, too.
George, we do know that the board will support you, and Randy will be there to do whatever you need to have done.
I need some help, serious help. I need serious help, and Mark's going to need some serious help. So Mark and I are going to need some help, seriously. But yes, we'll get through it. We'll take us, just be patient with us. But and Liz is always a phone call away too. So
And we know we know where she lives. Okay, are we okay to move on? Anybody else want to make any comments before? If not, we're going into, God, Lennox Avenue, doesn't it always keep showing up? 22 Lennox Avenue LLC, PID 32039, 20 Lennox Road, PID 32040, 22L, 22R Lennox Road, acceptance review, lot line adjustment. And George?
yeah, this. Tim, you know the routine. This is an easy one. It's a lot line change. I won't get into the, as you said, 20 Lennox Road, 22. Town department signatures are not required for a lot line change. There are waivers, again, those would be for the traditional subdivision. We don't require them for lot line changes. So staff would recommend approval of both the waiver and the lot line adjustment plan, and I'll turn it over to Tim Pellegrin from Promised Land Survey representing the owner.
Thank you.
Glad you're here to share that with us tonight.
I'm really
You've been here
thankful.
for years.
Do anything more to make Liz cry, but fact is, as a fellow professional, oh my goodness, she is like the best. I work in so many towns all over the state, and New England for that matter, and as in terms of an assistant and person you can call and a friendly voice and astute advice, doesn't get any better. So
Thank you for those comments, sir.
she's also a friend. And really good discussion, by the way, before, as to how you guys voted on that, that overhead door. I was like chomping at the bit, because I kind of wanted to, I get involved in it when you're sitting here, and the only thing you may have added would be escrow, like how you could review the escrow before phase 2. It's the only thing I was picking up on, but I don't know. But anyway, separate issue. I'm dialing back, moving forward now. Here's a lot line adjustment that is relatively simple. There's a building that's, this lot line adjustment is done for the second time. It was done in 2012 with the idea, with the lot 40. The owner owns both these lots. He adjusted the lot line between these two lots, so he'd have 15 feet from his building to the new lot line, while he developed condominiums next door. Somehow the surveyor in 2012 didn't do it right. The building was not 15 feet, it was more like 11 feet. I have no idea how those mistakes happen, but nonetheless, this is a new lot line adjustment to slightly alter those lot lines to make the building most conforming at lot 39, or also known as 20 Lenox Ave. The owner owns both these lots. It's just a slight adjustment. I do have the 2012 plan if anybody wanted to see it. Both lots still meet all the zoning requirements. They're much larger. They're both on town water and sewer. They're much larger than they need to be. And I don't believe there's any violations of zoning, relatively straightforward. So I don't need to editorialize this any further, I think. With that, I'll answer any questions the board might have, or perhaps members of the public. Thank you. That's it.
Any
Simple.
questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept jurisdiction. I move to accept jurisdiction of the lot line adjustment plan before the board for 22 Lenox Road, LLC, PID 32029, 20 Lenox Road, PID 32040, 22L, and 22R Lenox Road.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second, and everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? If not, we'll move and accept
Mr.
jurisdiction.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
So we have a motion on the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain?
Mr. Chairman, seeing no one except for the engineer
He's
and
he's
our
playing a rabbit right now.
chief Zoom director said no one's online, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye to close the public hearing. Aye.
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 Say aye. The public hearing is now closed.
Mr. Chair?
On the grant waivers.
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry?
I have a question.
Oh, sir, yes?
So, Tim, not to drag this up, because I was the,
Don't forget, we had the fire engine drive up that property.
yeah, I was the most hated back in 2012 over this plan. So,
We remember it.
I remember the original lot line adjustment included, it had to be moved to the west to allow for frontage for lot 22. And now I see it's being moved back to the east. Is there still going to be frontage there, enough frontage on lot 22, moving that back to the east from the west? I clearly remember it came in two parts that particular night. It came first for the original lot line adjustment, and then we had a site plan review for 22. And there was a lot of contention on moving that lot line, because doing so gave them the frontage they needed to move ahead with the project on 22.
Interesting. All I know, yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're not moving it back to its original position, which now puts it non-conforming for frontage on that lot.
It's a very good question. What I can say,
Wasn't it 15 feet or
that the
30 feet?
zoning, requirement is 100 feet of the 35-foot setback. And the current frontage is 152.25, and that's listed on just above the frontage of that particular lot, and the proposed is 142.04. So there is a slight reduction in the frontage. However, 100 feet is the frontage requirement, so my knowledge, no.
Okay.
No, yep. So I don't think it's close, but
Okay.
if zoning had changed since, I do not believe zoning's changed since 2012 in that zone, so I'm not sure. And I wasn't privy to that original lot line adjustment.
Oh, I remember it clearly.
Yep.
Oh, the
Remember
big
that
issue
plan,
back
too.
then was driving the.
Is it,
Up that, what became a condominium where they connected all that building?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It was a process.
was it, it's under plan references number 2? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Tim Winings was the surveyor back in 2012. He's since retired. He's moved south. He's not practicing any longer. to my
I guess I
knowledge.
didn't recall the lot line adjustment there. I don't remember it.
Yeah, I do. It came up in 2 parts. And at first, the lot line adjustment was voted down, and then it had to be brought back up for, members of the board at that time had tried to block the second plan by denying the lot line adjustment, and then cooler heads prevailed, and we made it clear that you cannot, each plan had to stand on its own merits. So we had to reopen the lot line adjustment. That was approved, and then subsequently, the second plan was denied for other reasons. And then, over the course of several months, different changes were made. Plans came back several times until they finally came up with a plan that met the ordinances and it could be approved.
Strangely enough, it couldn't, I don't know how they, that line in the building was 11 feet to the lot line, not 15. So there
yeah.
was mistakes. I cannot explain.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, so,
I
but
don't-
I remember it actually, the lot line adjustment failed and then had to be brought back up for reconsideration because it was used, it was denied, so the second plan couldn't go through, and we can't do that.
Was the same owner back then? Do
Yes.
you know? Okay.
Yeah,
This makes it clean.
yeah.
Just for the record too, as I said to Randall, it makes it cleaner. I also talked to Bob Mackey, so this is better for the building department because now you have a setback that meets the requirement of a 15-foot setback for a building permit on the side property line.
Yeah, and that wasn't my question. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't moving something back and putting it back into nonconformity. And it appears that it's not, so I
More
have no problem.
conforming to my,
So
the way I see it.
setbacks and everything else in the front, and everything is now Copus? We're all set.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, any other further questions from the board members? And also, we have the grant of the waivers, because this is water and sewer, and then
For the record, you can do it all at once. You said do it.
we can all one time, so I
Yep.
have an issue with that unless a member has the basic.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to grant the waivers. I'm gonna read the first 2 and do the last one separate.
Okay.
Got some feedback, so I move to grant waiver from LDCR Section 170-24A11 to not provide 2-foot contours on the plan, as these are existing lots of record, and both are served by municipal water and sewer. After review of the waiver, request the board find specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land and such indicate that the waiver will be properly carried out in the spirit and intent of the regulations. I also move to grant a waiver from LDCR Section 170-24A12 HIS mapping, as these are existing lots of record and both are served by municipal water and sewer, and the lands do not contain wetlands. These are existing lots of record and both are served by municipal water and sewer. After review of the waiver request, the board finds that specific circumstances relative to the plan or conditions of the land and such indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second.
I do have a question.
Mr.
Looks like
Nelson.
there's a sentence fragment that is a duplicate. It talks about existing lots of record and water and sewer twice. Could we, like, maybe strike the duplicate sentence? Fragment.
It's probably just me.
It's probably just a MS
So
Word
excited
having
to
its
do that.
revenge with you.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain. Motion passes. And then we have
All right, so,
finding of... Oh,
Mr. Chairman, I move to grant the waiver from LDCR Section 1724A 18 to not provide a traffic impact statement, as these are existing lots of record. There are existing residences on the lots which will not change at this time. Therefore, there will be no increase in traffic entering or exiting the lots. At review of the waiver request, the board finds that strict conformity of the regulations would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Finding of facts?
Let's keep on going. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion finding of facts for the lot line adjustments. The board finds the proposed plan does not alter existing conditions which would affect access to the lots, ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood remains unchanged as a result of the adjustment of the lot line.
Second.
So we have a motion, and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay,
Aye, so,
approved to
Mr.
pursuant
Chairman, if
to...
there's no other comments and no issues
You're on a
from
roll.
Public Works, I will move to approve pursuant to RSA 676, column 4, rubrical number 3, expedited review with the following conditions, subject to the owner's signature, subject to the on-site inspection of town's engineer, establish escrow for the settings of bounds and certify the bounds have been set, note approved waivers on the plan, obtain written approval for the plan director, designee that the GIS disk is received and operable and it complies with the LDCR Section 1724C, subject to receipt of applicable state and local permits related to the project, conditions precedent shall be met within 6 months. Submission of the appropriate recording fees payable to the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds. This includes a $25 L-chip fee, recording fees for the Mylar in the notice of decision.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved? Opposed?
Abstain. Or whatever.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Not everything moved forward. It's...
All right, so that's approved, right?
So we got to a point where now we can open it up if there's any board comments, if anybody wants to make any comments.
We'll see it then.
Seeing none,
Did you want to say something? I thought your hand was up.
I would like
Oh.
Elizabeth to gavel out our closure.
Oh, I think she would like to say something. No, I thought you said you wanted to say something.
No,
You can gavel us
Are
out
you sure?
then.
I'm positive.
I just want to say one more time that I really appreciate everything you've done for the town, and you're going to be missed.
Thank you. I'm going to miss being here. I really,
Town's gonna
truly
miss you.
will.
I echo that sentiment. I really appreciate your dedication, your knowledge, and your institutional knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It has been my absolute pleasure to serve this board. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Can
You're
you
not
going to make
changing your
it?
phone numbers, right?
Hmm?
You're not changing your phone, right?
my
Motion
phone's
to
the same.
adjourn.
Is there
We have a
second?
motion to adjourn.
Hold
All
on.
in favor?
Can I ask
say aye.
one question, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry? Yes.
Can I call you in the morning, go over tonight's meeting? I'm only kidding.
I'll be there tomorrow.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion to close and adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You got to gavel us out.
We are gavelled out.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you.